getting the boot. Welcome to the Rumour File.
Good morning, gents. Rumour is fact that Brad Scott will be stepped down as head coach with Dean Solomon to take the interim role. And if my prayers are answered, St James will return.
Oh, St James.
Right, that's interesting. Given I think we've off-air had a sneak preview from Jon Anderson of an observation he'll make about Neil Danaher and what influence he might have had on the future of a football club had matters gone in a different direction, shall we say.
Sliding doors and all that.
Mitch Cleary is reporting that Brad Scott has been sacked, and was on the Rumour File like 15 minutes ago.
Yes. Yeah, May asked me about it, said, what's the likelihood of that? And I said, well, once Dean has been living up sort of north New South Wales. He was brought back. He was on the board, but he came back to live in Melbourne and was on the board. Very good mate of Andrew Welsh, who was the president of Essendon. And then he moved from a board position to a coaching assistant over summer. Not a move that Brad Scott at the time, I believe, supported. Yeah. Once that happened, it was ominous in terms of Brad's future. But there's two things. One's with Neil Danaher's passing yesterday, the timing seems strange to me. Yeah. And secondly, Andrew Welsh, the president of Essendon, said recently, in a move to ease pressure on his coach, on Brad Scott, that he will be the next premiership coach of Essendon. Now, things change in football, but that was very, very recently. That makes it even more surprising.
Yeah.
Is it a little surprising that you would pull focus from Neil Danaher?
I think they're thinking that right now, if that's the case, yes.
This morning, Getting the Boot told us in the Rumour File that Essendon coach Brad Scott will be sacked and the former Essendon champ Dean Solomon will take over. About 10 minutes after that, Mitch Cleary reported that Brad Scott had been sacked, and that appears to be the case. Sam McClure, award-winning AFL journalist and broadcaster, nice to chat again, Sam. This seems an extremely strange thing to do. It pulls focus away from Neil Danaher.
Yep.
Is this something that I was talking to Maddie Burke in the newsroom, and she said, well, maybe he was sacked on the weekend and the news just leaked out.
Oh, yeah.
So is there an innocent explanation?
It's a good question, Ross. Morning. I would suggest that Maddie's probably onto something. I mean, these things, tend to happen over the period of a couple of days. It was obviously a disastrous result, the Dreamtime match against Richmond, albeit, they had some more serious injuries that Brad Scott seems to have walked under a ladder. He's had the worst run with injuries I can remember of a coach the last couple of years, but his results haven't been good enough. It is very strange timing. I would agree with that. Whether Brad's walked away, I would suggest that there would be some sort of parting of the ways, but he was doomed for a while, in my eyes, Brad Scott. Once Andrew Welsh, the Essendon champion who became president, installed his mate Dean Solomon off the board to be an assistant coach, it always felt like there were eyes on Brad Scott, for me anyway.
So Sam, the rumour is Dean Solomon. Has that been confirmed?
We haven't had that confirmation, Russ, from the club, but I would suggest, given how the Rumour File seems to have a hit rate of 99.9, that would be accurate. And he's done it before, right? He was a caretaker coach at Gold Coast. So, he's always had ambitions to coach again. Whether he puts his hand up for the job full time remains to be seen.
And Sam, so you obviously follow this very closely. So Brad Scott's demeanour over the last few weeks, has there been some signs?
Yeah, I think that's actually a great point. I think Russ maybe even more than a few weeks. Those close to Brad Scott say that he hasn't been his bubbly self for some time. Now, he was coach at North Melbourne for a long time, took them to consecutive prelims, couldn't get them all the way. That was one of the things that attracted Essendon to him, was that, he did that at North with not a great list. It's kind of incredible that they've gone back to 3 drafts. They've completely bottomed out. Tim Roberts, the now CEO, was on the board at the time when that happened. Andrew Welsh, the now president, was on the board when that happened. Like, they were all aligned with this plan. And I guess to all the Essendon supporters listening right now, my question would be, okay, you've sacked your coach. Has it helped your team anymore? Like, I don't think this is the Carlton situation with Voss. I don't think they're necessarily going to get this spike because they've sacked a coach, because I don't think their team is very good. They've got 6 or 7 star youngsters, but Ross and Russ, they need time to develop. So this is another very messy situation for the Essendon Footy Club.
Good on you, Sam. Thanks for being available to us. Listener Jenny points out, somewhat ironic that Neil Danaher's been taken off. Attention's been diverted, given that Neil himself was president of the Coaches Association. So I guess the situation presents two possibilities. Either they have sacked him overnight, which would be weird to pull focus from Neil Danaher.
Yeah, or the Berkey.
Or he was sacked last weekend and the news has filtered out and they couldn't do anything to control it.
We've heard today that the Essendon board decided as early as Saturday to sack Brad Scott. Obviously, they were not happy about the loss to Richmond on Friday night by 3 goals. They announced it this morning, and in the wake less than 24 hours earlier of Neil Danaher's death, I think the timing of the club was poor. Tim Lane is a key member of 3AW's football commentary team. He joins us now. Tim, good morning.
Good morning, Tom. Good to be with you.
Should Essendon have just maybe waited another day, like to announce Brad Scott's sacking tomorrow instead of this morning?
I think if they had their druthers, it probably would have been the way to go. I'm just not sure, how concerned they were that with more than one person and, in fact, a coterie of people knowing that the decision had been made, that they just needed to get it out there. But the timing is excruciatingly bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It was only a couple of months ago. Did Essendon beat Melbourne, and a lot of the same power brokers were saying Brad Scott's the man to win us our next flag? That has changed very quickly, hasn't it?
The president said that. So, it's that result is just about the outlier of the season so far when you think about it, because Melbourne have done so well and yet somehow the Bombers knocked them off. Yes, look, you never know with these things just what's happening inside. I've been a Brad Scott fan. I think he's a person of quality. I thought he was a terrific appointment when Essendon persuaded him, and that's another unfortunate aspect. I think he was in some ways doing it, reluctantly, because he had a job at the AFL, which he would have been secure in for as long as he liked, I would imagine. But back he came to coaching, that drug that once it is into your system, it seems you just can't get rid of, and here he is. So it's sad for him. Some at the club, I think, would feel bad about it, but it's been a divided joint for a long time, and they have not been able to get it together. And in fact, they make Carlton look good.
Well, that was going to be our next question. Are Carlton and Essendon now sort of competing in the same market for a new coach?
I guess so. Yes, I think that's probably the case. Carlton made it pretty clear that they want a fresh coach. Someone new, young, relatively young in sort of coaching experience terms. And I think that is the right way to go. They're the ones who are doing best at this, filled with ambition. Now, whether Essendon are viewing it the same way, I don't know. I said they're divided and have been for a long time, and a figure of all of that is James Hird. His name will be part of it all, although my knowledge, such as it is, of the Essendon Football Club would suggest that won't happen, but it will be, I'd imagine, part of the conversation.
I've always felt that if you barracked for a club or played for a club, you shouldn't coach the club. Like I remember when Michael Voss started at Carlton, he went on how he loved barracking for Carlton when he was a kid, and he loved Kenny Hunter and Peter Bosusto and people like that. And of course, James Hird was an Essendon great. But to me, it's almost incestuous to then go back and coach the same club. Your thoughts?
Well, it's a dynamic business and it has changed a lot, I guess. And I could say, just to score a debating point, that Jock McHale and Norm Smith did pretty well.
That's true.
Over the years. So, it hasn't always been thus. And I guess it was part of the old-fashioned culture of the game that you tried to have somebody who imbued the boys of today with the, spirit of old sort of thing. But I think, you're probably right. There are no rules on this anymore, and as with so many things, our dear departed friend Ron Barassi symbolises change as it occurred by being the player who did the unthinkable back in late 1964, early 65, and left Melbourne. So, it probably is A point worth contemplating for Essendon, but I think there's a lot more to that decision than just that aspect.
Final question: if you're this young coach, you're an assistant coach at a club, and you're being tapped on the shoulder, and both Carlton and Essendon approach you, I won't name any names. Which club would you coach? Which club do you reckon a young assistant who's got the fire in the belly, would he prefer Essendon or Carlton at the moment?
I don't know what he'd prefer, but I think I'd prefer Carlton because I think they are sort of getting onto the same page now. The raps on Graham Wright were big, and I think he has brought something. It hasn't all been plain sailing during the course of this year, but I feel as though they might be pointed in the right direction at the moment. The fact that, a really solid figure like Brad Scott and a very capable person has not been able to make it work at Essendon suggests to me that there is a long way to go.